The Thai food was getting cold in my hands as I walked through the glass doors of Meridian Financial Advisors. Monica loved their pad Thai, and I'd driven across town during my lunch break to surprise her. After 15 years of marriage, I still enjoyed these spontaneous gestures, especially since my banking job kept me traveling so much lately. The lobby was all polished marble and dark wood, the kind of expensive interior design meant to impress wealthy clients. Abstract art hung on cream-colored walls, and soft classical music played from hidden speakers. Everything about the place screamed success and sophistication. The receptionist, a young woman with kind eyes and a bright smile, looked up as I approached her mahogany desk. Her nameplate read, Lisa Rodriguez, and she was probably in her mid-20s with the eager professionalism of someone still new to corporate life. "Hi there," I said, lifting the takeout bag. "I'm Gregory Pearson, Monica's husband. Is she available for a quick lunch?" Lisa's face brightened with immediate recognition. "Oh, Mr. Pearson. Monica talks about you all the time. She's just freshening up in the executive bathroom right now." "The executive bathroom?" "Yeah, they're always in there around lunch. Must be a routine thing." Lisa's tone was casual, matter-of-fact, as if this was perfectly normal office behavior. She gestured toward a hallway lined with offices. "You know how it is with the senior staff and their routines." I nodded, though something about her phrasing struck me as odd. "They? Oh, you know how it is with the senior staff. They have access to the nicer facilities." Lisa gestured toward the back of the office. "Monica's cubicle is right over there if you want to wait. She shouldn't be much longer." As I walked toward Monica's work area, my mind processed Lisa's words. "They're always in there around lunch." The phrase echoed in my head as I set the food down on Monica's organized desk. Her workspace was neat and professional. Family photos arranged just so, a small plant in a ceramic pot, color-coded file folders stacked precisely. Through my banking work, I developed a habit of paying attention to details, analyzing patterns in financial data and client behavior. Lisa's comment suggested a regular routine involving multiple people, which seemed unusual for something as personal as freshening up. The executive bathroom was just 20 feet away, its frosted glass door clearly marked "Executive Staff Only" in elegant gold lettering. The hallway was quiet except for the soft hum of air conditioning and muted voices from nearby offices. I could hear water running inside the bathroom. Curiosity got the better of me. I approached the bathroom and noticed the door was slightly ajar, not wide open, but enough to allow a narrow view inside. The gap was perhaps 2 inches, barely noticeable unless you were standing at just the right angle. Through that small opening, I could see a portion of the marble counter with its brass fixtures and expensive toiletries. What I saw made my blood run cold and my hands clench involuntarily. 2 toothbrushes sat side by side in an elegant ceramic holder on the pristine counter. One was Monica's familiar purple electric toothbrush, the Sonicare model I'd bought her last Christmas after she'd researched it extensively and added it to her wish list. The other was a compact men's travel electric toothbrush, sleek and black, sitting in a small charging case that suggested regular use but was designed for portability and discretion. My heart hammered against my ribs as the implications hit me. Monica had never mentioned sharing bathroom space with anyone at work. In 15 years of marriage, she'd always been particular about her personal hygiene items, preferring to keep her toothbrush in a separate holder from mine at home. The water stopped running. Panic shot through me as I realized someone was about to emerge. I quickly backed away from the door and returned to Monica's cubicle, my mind racing and my hands slightly trembling as I arranged the takeout containers on her desk. Footsteps approached from the bathroom area, soft, deliberate steps on the carpet. Then a second set of footsteps, heavier, more confident. "Greg, what are you doing here?" Monica's voice was higher than usual, tinged with surprise and something else I couldn't quite identify. She looked flushed, her cheeks pink as if she'd been rushing, and her usually perfect hair was slightly mussed despite having just freshened up. "Thought I'd surprise you with lunch," I said, studying her face carefully. "Thai food from that place you love on 5th Street." She smoothed down her navy blue blouse and ran a hand through her dark hair, trying to restore its usual neat appearance. "This is such a sweet surprise. You really didn't have to do that." especially with how busy you've been at the bank. Behind her, I heard the bathroom door open again with a soft click. A man emerged, tall, distinguished, probably in his early 40s, wearing an expensive charcoal suit that fit him perfectly. His silver hair was styled immaculately, and he had the kind of confident bearing that suggested senior management. Even his tie was silk, with a subtle pattern that probably cost more than most people's entire outfit. "Oh," the man said, noticing me standing at Monica's desk. His composure was professional and polished, but I caught a flicker of surprise in his dark eyes, the kind of reaction someone has when they encounter something unexpected. "Hello there." Monica turned around quickly, perhaps too quickly. "Greg, this is Dr. Kevin Stevens. He's a senior tax advisor here. Kevin, this is my husband, Gregory." Kevin stepped forward with a practiced smile and extended his hand. His movements were smooth and confident, like someone accustomed to making good first impressions. "Pleasure to meet you, Gregory. Monica's told us all about your work in commercial banking." His handshake was firm, his manner professionally charming. Everything about him screamed success and sophistication, from his expensive watch to his perfectly manicured nails. As we shook hands, I noticed he seemed slightly out of breath, as if he'd been hurrying or exerting himself. "Kevin was just asking me about dental care recommendations for his daughter," Monica said quickly, her words tumbling out faster than usual. "You know how I research everything thoroughly before making decisions." I looked between them, noting how Monica avoided direct eye contact with me while speaking. Her tells were subtle but familiar after 15 years of marriage, the way she touched her neck when nervous, how her voice pitched slightly higher when she was being less than truthful. "Dental care?" I repeated, keeping my tone neutral. "Yes," Kevin nodded enthusiastically, his smile never wavering. "Monica's very knowledgeable about health and wellness topics. Always has great advice for those of us with children to worry about." The explanation felt forced, rehearsed, like dialogue from a play they'd practiced. In my banking career, particularly when reviewing loan applications and conducting client interviews, I'd learned to spot inconsistencies in stories. This conversation had all the hallmarks of a cover story, too detailed, too eager, with participants who seemed overly committed to selling a particular narrative. "Well," I said slowly, watching both their faces. "I hope I wasn't interrupting anything important." "Not at all," Monica said, her voice still unnaturally bright. "Kevin was just leaving, weren't you?" "Absolutely," Kevin agreed, already taking a step toward the elevator bank. "Busy afternoon ahead. Client meetings. You know how it is. Nice meeting you, Gregory." He nodded to both of us and walked toward the elevators with purposeful strides, his expensive shoes silent on the thick carpet. Monica and I sat at her desk to share the Thai food, but I found it hard to concentrate on our conversation. The pad Thai, usually one of my favorites, tasted like cardboard. Monica seemed eager for me to leave, mentioning several times how busy her afternoon was going to be, with quarterly reports and client reviews. "This is delicious," she said, though I noticed she was mostly pushing the noodles around on her plate rather than eating. "You're so thoughtful to bring lunch." When I asked casual questions about her work, her responses were vague and distracted. She kept glancing toward the elevator bank where Kevin had disappeared, and her phone buzzed twice during our conversation. Both times, she glanced at the screen and then quickly turned it face down. "How well do you know Dr. Stevens?" I asked as casually as possible while opening the spring rolls container. Monica shrugged, a gesture that seemed forced. "Kevin? I barely know him. He's in the tax department, different floor entirely. We don't interact much beyond basic pleasantries." The lie hit me like a physical blow. Different floor? I'd just seen them emerge from the same bathroom, and the company directory board in the lobby had shown tax services and accounting on the same floor. Barely know him? They'd seemed awfully familiar for strangers, and their coordinated story about dental advice suggested prior planning. "That's interesting," I said carefully. "He seemed to know you pretty well. Mentioned that you always have good advice." "Oh, well, you know how office gossip works," Monica said with a dismissive wave. "People talk in the break room, share stories. He probably heard from someone else that I research health topics." Another inconsistency. If they didn't interact much, how would he know about her research habits? And why would someone else be discussing Monica's dental knowledge with a senior partner? I finished lunch quickly, kissing Monica goodbye while studying her reaction. Her lips felt tense against mine, and she seemed eager to return to her work. "I'll see you tonight," I said. "Probably around 7, if the Patterson loan review doesn't run late." "Sounds good. I might be a little late myself. We're closing the Morrison account books today." Monica was already turning back to her computer screen. "But I'll call if I'm going to be really late." That evening, Monica arrived home at her usual time, around 6:30. She seemed more relaxed now, back in familiar territory. Her hair was back to its normal neat style, and she'd changed from the navy blouse into a casual sweater. "How was the rest of your day?" I asked, as she settled into her favorite chair with a glass of Pinot Grigio. "Oh, the usual. Boring client meetings, spreadsheet reviews, quarterly reconciliations. Nothing exciting." She took a sip of wine and smiled at me with what seemed like genuine warmth. "Thanks again for lunch. That was really sweet of you." "No problem. I enjoyed meeting Dr. Stevens. Seems like a nice guy." Monica's glass paused halfway to her lips for just a fraction of a second. "Kevin?" "I guess so. Like I said, I don't really know him that well." I decided to probe a little deeper, using techniques I'd learned from interviewing clients about their financial situations. "What's the office dynamic like there? Do the senior staff interact much with the accounting department?" "Not really. Everyone stays pretty much in their own lanes. The partners are usually too busy with their high-value clients to bother with us regular employees." Monica's voice was casual, but I noticed she was fidgeting with her wedding ring, sliding it up and down her finger. "That makes sense. Big firms tend to be pretty compartmentalized." I paused, watching her face. "Though I guess you all share some common areas. Break rooms, bathrooms, that sort of thing." Monica's head snapped up, her eyes meeting mine directly for the first time since I'd arrived home. "What do you mean?" "Nothing specific. Just that Lisa mentioned the executive bathroom when I was asking where you were. Seems nice that they let accounting staff use the upgraded facilities." "Oh, that." Monica waved her hand dismissively, but her voice had a slight edge to it. "It's just closer to my cubicle sometimes." "More convenient than walking all the way to the regular employee restrooms?" "No big deal." Another inconsistency, and a significant one. If she barely knew Kevin Stevens, why had she felt comfortable enough to discuss his daughter's dental care needs in detail? And why were they both using the executive bathroom at the same time if it was just a matter of convenience? The executive facilities were typically reserved for partners and senior management, not accounting staff looking for convenience. After Monica went to bed at 10:30, I found myself unable to sleep. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events and analyzing every detail like I would a complex commercial loan application with potential red flags. The more I thought about it, the more questions arose. Monica's behavior, the bathroom situation, Kevin's expensive appearance and confident manner, the coordinated story about dental advice. None of it added up to innocent workplace interaction. Over the next few days, I began paying closer attention to Monica's behavior patterns. She'd been working late more frequently over the past few months, 2 or 3 evenings a week. When I asked about these late nights, she always mentioned client deadlines, month-end closing procedures, or quarterly reports that required extra attention. "The Morrison account is particularly demanding," she'd explain. Or, "We're implementing new software for the quarterly reports, so everything takes twice as long." The explanations were always detailed and plausible, but I began noting the specific dates and claimed reasons. In my banking work, pattern recognition was crucial for identifying potential fraud or misrepresentation. I also noticed changes in her appearance that went beyond normal professional development. Monica had always dressed well for work, but lately she'd been upgrading her wardrobe significantly. New suits from expensive department stores, designer shoes, regular salon appointments for cuts and colors that cost more than she'd typically spend. When I complimented her on a particularly striking new dress, a sleek black number that had probably cost several $100s, she attributed it to wanting to project confidence during her recent promotion review process. "Image matters in financial services," she'd said. The partners noticed details like presentation and professionalism. I want to make sure I'm positioning myself for advancement. Her phone habits had changed dramatically too. Monica used to leave her smartphone lying around casually, often asking me to check messages for her when she was cooking or getting ready for work. Now she kept it close at all times and took calls in private, walking into our bedroom or out onto the deck when the phone rang. She'd started texting during dinner and family time, claiming it was work-related communication about urgent client matters or deadline-driven projects. "Sorry, just need to respond quickly," she'd say, her fingers flying over the screen. "The Peterson account needs these numbers first thing tomorrow." But I'd caught glimpses of her screen occasionally, and the messages didn't look like typical work communication. They were shorter, more personal in tone, without the formal language she typically used for business correspondence. The following Tuesday, I decided to do some research. Using my banking industry connections and professional networking tools, I looked up Meridian Financial Advisors' staff directory and company structure. Dr. Kevin Stevens wasn't hard to find. He was prominently featured on their website's Meet Our Team section, with a professional headshot that showed the same confident smile I'd encountered in person. The man had impressive credentials that went far beyond what Monica had mentioned. CPA with a law degree from Georgetown, specializing in corporate tax law and estate planning. He'd been with the firm for 8 years and was recently promoted to senior partner, a position that came with significant prestige and compensation in the financial advisory world. What caught my attention was his personal status. The brief bio mentioned that he was recently divorced and focused on building lasting client relationships. No children were mentioned anywhere in his professional profile, company biography, or the firm's marketing materials. So much for seeking dental advice for his daughter. I dug deeper into the company's organizational structure, studying their floor plans and department layouts available on their corporate website. Contrary to Monica's claims about different floors and separate departments, the tax and accounting divisions were housed in the same area of the building. Kevin's corner office was actually adjacent to the accounting department, with only a glass-walled conference room separating the two areas. According to the company directory, Kevin's office was literally 30 feet from Monica's cubicle. They would see each other constantly throughout the workday. Monica had been lying to me systematically about their proximity and interaction opportunities. That evening, I decided to confront her indirectly, using the kind of gentle questioning techniques I employed with clients who might be withholding information about their financial situations. "I looked up your company website today," I mentioned over dinner, cutting into the salmon Monica had prepared. "Impressive operation. Very professional presentation." Monica looked up from her rice pilaf, her fork pausing midway to her mouth. "You looked up our website? Why?" "Just curious about where you work." I realized I don't know much about the day-to-day operations there, and after meeting Dr. Stevens, I wanted to learn more about the firm's structure. I kept my tone conversational and interested. Kevin has quite a background. Georgetown Law, 8 years with the firm, impressive credentials. I guess so. I don't really pay attention to people's educational backgrounds. Monica's fork clinked against her plate as she set it down. "Why are you suddenly so interested in Kevin?" "No particular reason. Just making conversation about your work environment." I studied her face, noting the slight flush creeping up her neck. "Though I was confused when you said he was on a different floor." The office directory shows tax services right next to accounting. Monica's cheeks flushed slightly pinker. "Well, it's a big office space. Different areas within the same floor. I misspoke about it being a different floor entirely. The website shows his office is right next to your department," I continued gently. "You must see him regularly throughout the day." Well, yes, sometimes. But that doesn't mean we interact beyond basic workplace pleasantries." Monica was fidgeting with her napkin now, folding and refolding it. "You're reading too much into casual office dynamics." The pattern was becoming clearer. Monica was being deliberately deceptive about her relationship with Kevin Stevens, and her discomfort with my questions suggested she had significant reasons for maintaining these deceptions. Over the next week, I began applying systematic analysis to Monica's recent behavior changes, using skills I'd developed in commercial banking investigations where clients' stories didn't match their financial records. The timeline was revealing. The changes in Monica's behavior, the late nights, appearance upgrades, secretive phone habits, and general distraction, all traced back approximately 6 months. Using public records available through my banking industry access, I discovered that Kevin Stevens' divorce had been finalized exactly 6 months and 2 weeks ago. The correlation was too precise to be coincidental. I pulled our joint credit card statements for the past year and began analyzing them with the same attention to detail I used for complex loan applications where borrowers might be misrepresenting their financial situations. What I found made my stomach churn and my hands shake with anger. Starting 6 months ago, there were charges for expensive lunches at upscale restaurants during times when Monica claimed to be in routine client meetings or working through lunch at her desk. The restaurants weren't cheap places near her office. They were romantic establishments across town, the kind of places people went for intimate conversations and special occasions. There were spa treatments and salon visits that went far beyond her normal routine. Previously, Monica had gotten her hair cut every 8 weeks and colored every 3 months. The credit card showed appointments every 4 weeks, with services including expensive treatments like deep conditioning, styling, and premium color processes. Gift purchases from men's stores made my chest tight with betrayal. Expensive ties from Nordstrom, cologne from Saks Fifth Avenue, leather goods from high-end boutiques. None of these items had ever appeared in our home, and Monica had never given me gifts from these stores. Most damning were several charges to the Grandview Boutique Hotel, a small luxury property near Monica's office. The charges were always for partial days, checking in around noon and checking out by 5 p.m. They occurred exclusively during afternoons when I was traveling for banking conferences or multi-day client meetings. The pattern was methodical and calculated. Monica wasn't having a spontaneous affair. She was conducting a systematic deception, using our joint finances to fund regular meetings with Kevin Stevens. I cross-referenced the hotel dates with my travel schedule and found perfect correlation. Every hotel charge occurred when I was out of town on banking business, giving Monica maximum freedom to conduct her affair without risk of unexpected encounters. The evidence was overwhelming, but I needed absolute confirmation before taking any action. My banking background had taught me the critical importance of thorough documentation before making accusations that could destroy relationships and reputations. The following Wednesday, I arranged to work from home, telling my assistant I needed to complete loan analyses without office interruptions. Instead, I drove downtown and positioned myself at a coffee shop across from Meridian Financial's building, with a clear view of the main entrance through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The coffee shop was busy enough that I could blend in with other customers, but positioned so I could maintain surveillance without being obvious. I ordered a large coffee and a sandwich, settling at a window table with my laptop open to look like any other professional working remotely. At 12:30 p.m. exactly, Monica and Kevin emerged from the building together. There was nothing casual or coincidental about their coordination. They walked out side by side, Monica's hand resting naturally on Kevin's arm as they navigated through the revolving door. Their body language was unmistakably intimate. Monica leaned close to Kevin as they walked, and he kept his hand on the small of her back in a gesture that suggested familiarity and possession. They moved together with the synchronized rhythm of a couple comfortable with physical closeness. They entered Chez Laurent, an upscale French bistro 2 blocks away that I recognized from our credit card statements. I followed at a distance, taking care to avoid being seen, and managed to secure a table in the bar area where I could observe the dining room without being noticed. What I witnessed left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. They sat at a corner table clearly chosen for privacy, holding hands across the white tablecloth while they talked intimately. Kevin stroked Monica's arm while she spoke, and she laughed at his comments with genuine delight. At one point, he reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture I recognized with painful clarity because I used to do the same thing during our early dating years, when Monica would blush and smile exactly the way she was smiling at Kevin now. I took several photos with my phone, making sure to capture clear images of their faces and intimate body language. The evidence was indisputable. This was not a professional lunch meeting or casual workplace interaction. This was two people deeply involved in a romantic relationship, comfortable with public displays of affection because they believed themselves unobserved. They lingered over lunch for nearly 2 hours, far longer than any legitimate business meeting would require. When they finally prepared to leave, Kevin helped Monica with her coat, and they kissed briefly but intimately before walking back toward their office building. That afternoon, I made an appointment with Patricia Collins, a divorce attorney recommended by a colleague at the bank. Patricia specialized in high net worth divorces and had extensive experience with financial services industry cases. Her office was in a prestigious downtown building, with law books lining the walls and certificates from Harvard Law School prominently displayed. Patricia herself was probably in her 50s, with steel gray hair and the sharp, intelligent eyes of someone accustomed to complex legal battles. I laid out the evidence I'd gathered: the bathroom discovery, the systematic lies about Kevin's location and relationship status, the financial records showing misuse of joint funds, and the surveillance photos documenting their affair. "You've been incredibly thorough," Patricia said, reviewing my documentation with obvious approval. "This kind of systematic evidence gathering will be invaluable if you decide to proceed with divorce proceedings." "I want to understand all my options," I told her, "both legal and practical consequences." We discussed asset protection strategies and the implications of Monica's affair on property division under state law. More importantly, Patricia explained how Monica's workplace relationship violated professional ethics standards in the financial services industry. "If she's having a relationship with a partner at her firm, that's almost certainly against company policy," she explained, leaning back in her leather chair. "Financial advisory firms are extremely sensitive about conflicts of interest and potential liability issues. Relationships between partners and subordinate employees create serious legal exposure." "What kind of exposure?" "Sexual harassment claims, favoritism allegations, conflicts of interest in client relationships. If Monica receives preferential treatment from Kevin, other employees could file complaints. If Kevin's judgment about Monica is compromised, it could affect client accounts she works on." Patricia tapped her pen on the desk. "The firm would want to know about this relationship immediately." "And the consequences would be?" "Depends on company policy, but typically both parties would face disciplinary action. The subordinate employee, Monica, might receive formal warnings or transfer requirements. The partner, Kevin, could face much more serious consequences, including loss of partnership status." I left Patricia's office with a clear understanding of the legal landscape and a preliminary strategy for protecting my interests. This wasn't just about ending my marriage. It was about ensuring there were appropriate consequences for the systematic deception and betrayal. Over the next 2 weeks, I continued building my evidence file with the same methodical approach I used for complex commercial loan investigations. I documented additional lunch meetings, obtained copies of hotel receipts through our joint credit card company, and even spoke casually with colleagues in the financial services industry about professional ethics standards and enforcement mechanisms. I discovered that Meridian Financial Advisors had a strict written policy regarding relationships between partners and employees, available in their employee handbook, which was posted online for recruiting purposes. The policy explicitly prohibited romantic relationships between partners and subordinate staff, with violations subject to immediate disciplinary action up to and including termination. Everything pointed to a pattern of calculated deception that went far beyond simple marital infidelity. Monica wasn't just having an affair, she was systematically violating professional ethics standards while using our joint finances to fund her relationship with Kevin. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in late October. Monica arrived home later than usual, around 7:45, claiming she'd been in extended client meetings. Her hair was styled differently than it had been that morning, and I caught a distinct whiff of expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine when she kissed me hello. "Long day?" I asked as she settled into the living room with a glass of wine, kicking off her heels with obvious relief. "Exhausting," she sighed dramatically. "These month-end closes are absolutely killing me. Back-to-back client meetings, reconciliation reviews, partner presentations. I barely had time to grab a quick bite." I nodded sympathetically, maintaining my calm demeanor. "Where did you eat?" Monica paused for just a moment too long, a hesitation that would have been imperceptible to most people but was glaring to someone who'd been studying her behavioral patterns for weeks. Just the sandwich shop in our building's lobby. Nothing special. Turkey and Swiss, I think. She took a sip of wine and smiled at me. How was your day? Did the Henderson loan approval come through? I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photos I'd taken that afternoon during another surveillance session. That's interesting. The lobby sandwich shop appears to have quite a romantic atmosphere. I showed her the images, crystal clear photos of her and Kevin at the same upscale French restaurant they'd visited multiple times, holding hands across the table while sharing an expensive bottle of wine and what appeared to be a very intimate conversation. Monica's face went completely white, the color draining from her cheek so quickly I thought she might faint. The wine glass trembled in her hand. That's not... She stared at the photos, her mouth opening and closing without producing coherent words. I brought you lunch a few weeks ago, I continued calmly, scrolling to more photos. Lisa mentioned how you and Kevin are always in there around lunch. She was talking about the executive bathroom, wasn't she? The one with 2 toothbrushes. I showed her a photo I'd taken the previous week during another office visit, a clear image of the bathroom counter with both toothbrushes visible in their shared holder. Monica's hands were shaking now, wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim of her glass. Greg, I can explain. I'm sure you can. I set my phone on the coffee table between us. But before you start, you should know I've been documenting this for weeks. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, gift purchases, all funded by our joint account. I stood up and walked to my briefcase, pulling out a thick folder organized with the same attention to detail I brought to million-dollar loan applications. Financial records, surveillance photos, timeline analysis, professional ethics research. Everything a commercial banker learns about investigating potential fraud. Monica's composure cracked completely. Tears started streaming down her face, leaving dark mascara tracks on her cheeks. It's not what you think, she whispered, setting her wine glass down with shaking hands. It started as just professional mentoring. Kevin was helping me navigate the promotion process, giving me advice about advancing in the firm. Professional mentoring, I repeated, opening the folder to reveal organized sections of evidence. Is that what we're calling adultery now? She flinched as if I'd slapped her, more tears flowing. You don't understand. You're never here, Greg. Always traveling for work, always focused on your banking career. I was lonely and Kevin was there. He understood the pressures of the financial services industry. So, this is my fault? No, that's not what I mean. Monica wiped her eyes, smearing makeup across her face. I didn't plan for this to happen. It just developed naturally over time. I opened the folder and pulled out printouts of credit card statements, each transaction highlighted and annotated with dates and locations. Developed naturally? You've been funding this natural development with our joint account for months. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts for your boyfriend. I spread the evidence across our coffee table. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, department store purchases, all organized chronologically to show the systematic pattern of deception. Monica stared at the documentation covering our entire coffee table. When did you start? I'm a commercial banker, Monica. I investigate financial irregularities and potential fraud for a living. I sat back down, keeping my voice steady and professional. Did you really think I wouldn't notice thousands of dollars in suspicious charges? Or that I couldn't trace the pattern of deception? She began crying harder, her whole body shaking with sobs. I'm sorry, Greg. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? Monica couldn't meet my eyes, staring down at her hands twisted in her lap. It was just supposed to be emotional support. Someone who understood the pressures and challenges of advancing in financial services. Kevin's been through partnership reviews. He knows how stressful the process can be. I pulled out the surveillance photos and laid them systematically on the table, each image showing increasing levels of intimacy and obvious romantic involvement. This looks like considerably more than emotional support. She stared at the images of herself and Kevin in various restaurants, holding hands, kissing, embracing, like lovers completely comfortable with physical affection. Oh God, you followed me. You actually followed me and took pictures. I verified my suspicions using standard investigative techniques, I corrected. The same methodology I'd use for any case involving potential misrepresentation and financial irregularities. Monica looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. What are you going to do? I gathered the evidence back into organized sections within the folder. First, I'm freezing our joint accounts tomorrow morning. You can use your salary for your personal expenses going forward. She nodded slowly, accepting this consequence without argument. Second, you're going to pack some things and stay somewhere else while we work through divorce proceedings. Greg, please. Can't we work through this somehow? I'll end things with Kevin immediately. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Counseling, therapy, anything you want. You've been lying to me systematically for months, I interrupted. Calculated, deliberate deception. Using our money to fund your affair. There's no working through that level of betrayal. Monica buried her face in her hands, her voice muffled by tears. I ruined everything. I completely ruined our whole life together. Yes, I agreed simply. You did. The next morning, while Monica was at work, I drove to Kevin Stevens' apartment building. I'd found his address through public records, a luxury high-rise in the financial district with 24-hour doorman service and the kind of amenities that came with senior partnership compensation. The building's lobby was all marble and crystal, with modern art and designer furniture arranged to impress wealthy residents and their guests. The doorman, a distinguished gentleman in his 60s, called up to announce my visit after I provided Kevin's apartment number. Kevin came down to the lobby 10 minutes later, looking confused and slightly concerned. He was dressed casually in expensive weekend clothes, designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Gregory, this is unexpected. What brings you here? I think you know, I said calmly, maintaining the same professional demeanor I used for difficult banking negotiations. We need to discuss your dental hygiene consultations with my wife. Kevin's confident demeanor faltered slightly, uncertainty flickering across his features. I'm not sure what you mean. I pulled out my phone and showed him the restaurant surveillance photos, starting with the most intimate images. These consultations look quite thorough and hands-on. Kevin's face went pale as he recognized the images, his eyes widening as he realized the extent of my documentation. Where did you get these? I took them, along with documenting the hotel visits, gift purchases, and shared bathroom arrangements at your office. I put my phone away and studied his reaction. I'm a commercial banker, Kevin. I'm very good at following financial trails, conducting investigations, and documenting evidence systematically. Kevin ran a hand through his silver hair, his polished composure cracking visibly. Look, Gregory, I want you to know this wasn't planned. Monica and we just connected. It started as professional mentoring and developed into something neither of us expected. Connected, I repeated. Is that what you call violating professional ethics standards with a subordinate employee? Professional ethics? Kevin's voice had lost its confident tone. Monica works in the accounting department. You're a senior partner. Workplace relationships between partners and subordinate staff violate industry standards and federal employment regulations. I kept my voice level and factual. They also violate your firm's written policies, don't they? Kevin's face went from pale to ashen gray. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating documented facts. I pulled out a business card and handed it to him. That's my divorce attorney. She specializes in financial services industry cases and is quite familiar with professional ethics standards and enforcement mechanisms. Kevin stared at the card as if it were a poisonous snake. What do you want from me? I want you to understand the full scope of consequences you're facing. I straightened my tie, maintaining professional composure. Monica's career, your partnership status, your professional reputation in the financial services community. All of it's now at risk because you couldn't maintain appropriate boundaries between personal and professional relationships. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you of realistic consequences based on documented evidence, I corrected. There's a significant difference between threats and information. I turned to leave, then paused and looked back at him. Oh, and Kevin? You might want to invest in your own bathroom facilities going forward. Sharing executive washrooms with subordinate employees is going to become significantly more complicated. I left Kevin standing in his luxury lobby, holding my attorney's business card and looking like a man who'd just realized his entire professional life was about to implode. That afternoon, I called Meridian Financial Advisors and asked to speak with the managing partner. I explained that I had information about a potential ethics violation involving inappropriate relationships between partners and subordinate staff that required immediate attention from senior management. The receptionist, ironically, it was Lisa Rodriguez who answered, put me through to the managing partner's assistant, who scheduled a meeting for the following Monday morning. Mr. Harrison will want to review this matter personally, the assistant explained. He takes professional ethics issues very seriously. Over the weekend, Monica stayed with her sister while I prepared my presentation for the managing partners. I organized the evidence chronologically and by category. Financial records showing misuse of joint funds, surveillance photos documenting the affair, timeline analysis proving systematic deception, and documentation of professional ethics violations. I prepared the presentation using the same standards I applied to major banking presentations: clear organization, compelling evidence, logical flow, and professional documentation that could withstand scrutiny. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, with the kind of drizzle that made downtown streets look somber and serious. I dressed in my best suit, the same navy blue ensemble I wore for the most important banking presentations, and drove to Meridian Financial's offices. The managing partners met with me in a conference room on the top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's financial district. 3 distinguished men in their 50s and 60s, each representing decades of experience in financial advisory services and corporate management. James Harrison, the senior managing partner, was a tall, silver-haired man with the kind of presence that commanded immediate respect. His colleagues, Michael Hart and Robert Walsh, flanked him at the polished conference table, all 3 taking notes as I presented my evidence. This is quite comprehensive, Harrison said, reviewing the surveillance photos with obvious concern. You've documented a clear pattern of inappropriate workplace behavior that violates multiple company policies. I'm a commercial banker, I explained. Thorough investigation and systematic documentation are fundamental parts of my professional training. When I discovered evidence of potential irregularities, I felt obligated to gather comprehensive proof before making any accusations. Hart, who appeared to handle human resources issues, examined the timeline analysis. The pattern shows this has been ongoing for approximately 6 months. 6 months and 2 weeks, correlating precisely with Dr. Stevens' divorce finalization, I confirmed. The relationship appears to have begun immediately after his personal circumstances changed. Walsh, reviewing the financial documentation, looked up sharply. They were using company facilities for personal meetings. The executive bathroom based on my observations and receptionist comments. Also, lunch meetings during work hours at expensive restaurants funded by joint marital accounts without my knowledge or consent. The 3 partners exchanged meaningful glances that suggested this kind of ethics violation was their worst nightmare from a liability standpoint. We'll need to conduct our own internal review, of course, Harrison said carefully. But this evidence is substantial and very concerning. I understand completely. I'm not seeking any specific outcome, just ensuring you have the information necessary to address the situation, according to your professional standards and company policies. Hart leaned forward. You mentioned professional ethics violations. Can you elaborate? Partner-subordinate relationships create multiple liability exposures, potential favoritism claims, sexual harassment allegations, conflicts of interest in client account management. If Monica receives preferential treatment or advancement opportunities due to her personal relationship with Dr. Stevens, other employees could file discrimination complaints. And if Dr. Stevens's judgment regarding Monica's work is compromised by their personal relationship, Walsh added, it could affect the quality and objectivity of client services she provides. Harrison nodded gravely. Financial advisory firms have fiduciary responsibilities to clients that require objective, professional judgment. Personal relationships that compromise that objectivity create serious legal and professional risks. I left the meeting knowing that both Monica and Kevin would face significant professional consequences for their actions. The financial services industry took ethics violations extremely seriously, especially when they involved power imbalances between partners and subordinate employees. The next few weeks unfolded with predictable efficiency. Meridian Financial launched a formal ethics investigation, interviewing employees, reviewing security footage, and examining company policy compliance. Kevin was placed on administrative leave pending the investigation's completion. Word spread quickly through the financial advisory community, a small, interconnected network where professional reputations were carefully maintained and closely monitored. Monica was called into multiple meetings with human resources and senior management. She was transferred to a different department under closer supervision and informed that her promotional prospects were now extremely limited pending the investigation's outcome. The divorce proceedings moved forward smoothly, aided by the comprehensive documentation I'd provided to Patricia Collins. Monica's affair was well established with indisputable evidence, which simplified asset division under state law and eliminated any potential alimony obligations on my part. The systematic financial evidence I'd gathered demonstrated clearly that marital funds had been used to support the extramarital relationship, giving me strong leverage in property negotiations. Kevin's partnership at Meridian Financial was terminated after the ethics investigation concluded. The managing partners determined that his relationship with Monica violated multiple company policies and created unacceptable liability risks for the firm. Word of his termination spread throughout the financial services community within days. Professional networks in the industry were surprisingly small and tightly connected. Kevin's ethics violation became widely known among financial advisors, tax attorneys, and corporate accountants across the region. Monica eventually found a position at a smaller firm, but at a significantly lower salary and with limited advancement opportunities. Her professional reputation had been damaged by the ethics investigation, making it difficult to secure positions at prestigious firms. The new job was with a small tax preparation service that handled individual returns rather than corporate accounts, a significant step down from her previous role at a major financial advisory firm. 6 months after discovering that second toothbrush, I found myself settling into a new routine that felt surprisingly comfortable and liberating. The divorce was finalized with terms heavily favorable to me, thanks to the comprehensive evidence of Monica's affair and financial misconduct. The house sold quickly in a strong market, allowing me to purchase a downtown condo closer to my banking office. My professional reputation in the commercial banking industry had actually been enhanced by how I'd handled the personal crisis. Colleagues respected the systematic, methodical approach I'd taken to a difficult situation, noting that my investigation skills and attention to detail were exactly what they valued in someone handling complex financial matters. "You approached it like a fraud investigation," my supervisor commented during my annual review. "Professional, thorough, well documented. Those are exactly the qualities we need in senior banking positions." I received a promotion to regional manager, partly based on my demonstrated ability to handle complicated situations with discretion, thoroughness, and professional competence. The new position came with increased responsibilities, better compensation, and recognition as one of the bank's rising leaders in commercial lending. Monica called occasionally, usually late at night when I assumed she'd been drinking. The conversations were brief and followed a predictable pattern: apologies, expressions of regret, tentative questions about whether there might be any possibility of reconciliation. "I made a terrible mistake," she said during one of these calls. "I threw away 15 years of marriage for someone who disappeared the moment things got difficult." "Kevin's not taking your calls?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from my continued monitoring of the situation. "He won't even acknowledge me at professional events. Acts like I'm completely invisible." Monica's voice was thick with tears. I lost everything. My marriage, my career prospects, my professional reputation. And for what? Someone who was just using me for entertainment. I kept these conversations brief and emotionally neutral. Trust, once broken as completely as Monica had broken it, couldn't be rebuilt through late-night phone calls and tearful apologies. Kevin had left the city entirely, relocating to a smaller market in the Midwest where his professional reputation might recover over time. The financial services industry had a long memory for ethics violations, but geographic distance sometimes provided opportunities for fresh starts. According to colleagues who tracked industry movements, he'd taken a position with a small firm at significantly reduced compensation and responsibility levels. One Friday evening in late spring, I was having drinks with banking colleagues at a downtown restaurant when I overheard a conversation at the next table that made me smile with quiet satisfaction. Two financial advisors were discussing cautionary tales about workplace relationships and professional ethics violations, the kind of stories that circulated through industry networks as warnings to younger professionals. The guy was a senior partner at Meridian Financial, one of them was saying. Had everything going for him: prestigious firm, established client base, partnership track, solid reputation in the community. Then he started messing around with someone from the accounting department. "What happened?" his companion asked, leaning forward with obvious interest. "The woman's husband found out." Turned out he was some kind of banking investigator type with serious analytical skills. Guy documented everything like it was a major fraud case: financial records, surveillance photos, timeline analysis, the works. That's brutal. Gets worse. The husband presented it all to the managing partners like a comprehensive audit report. Both of them lost their careers over it. The partner's position was terminated. The woman had to take a job at some small tax prep service. Are they at least together now? Hell no. Word is the guy dumped her the moment the professional pressure started. Couldn't handle the career consequences of their relationship becoming public. His companion shook his head. So she lost her marriage, her career, and the guy she threw it all away for? Exactly. Perfect example of how personal and professional ethics violations create consequences that extend far beyond the immediate relationship. I smiled slightly and took a sip of my drink, thinking about how thoroughly the financial services community had absorbed the lessons from Monica and Kevin's situation. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. "Great work on the Richardson account presentation. Your systematic approach and attention to detail really impressed the client." I typed back a quick acknowledgement and looked around the restaurant. It was filled with financial professionals, bankers, advisors, accountants, lawyers, people whose careers depended on trust, integrity, and professional ethics. The next morning, I had a client presentation for a major commercial real estate loan. The kind of complex, high-stakes transaction that required systematic analysis and absolute attention to detail. Skills I developed over years of banking experience and refined during a very different kind of investigation months earlier. As I reviewed my presentation materials one final time, I thought about how dramatically life could change based on small observations and careful analysis. A second toothbrush in an executive bathroom. A receptionist's casual comment about workplace routines. Financial irregularities in joint account statements. In banking, we called it due diligence, the process of investigating and verifying information before making important decisions. It was a principle that applied to financial transactions, business partnerships, and apparently personal relationships as well. The phone rang, my assistant letting me know the clients had arrived for our meeting. I gathered my presentation materials and headed to the conference room, ready to discuss loan terms, financial projections, and risk assessments. Professional skills that had served me well in multiple contexts, both expected and unexpected. As I walked into the meeting, I reflected briefly on the comprehensive consequences that had flowed from a single moment of curiosity about bathroom arrangements in an executive washroom. 2 careers destroyed, a marriage ended, professional reputations permanently damaged, all because 2 people thought they could conduct a secret affair without facing accountability. In the financial services industry, systematic investigation and professional networks ensured that ethical violations rarely remained secret for long. The clients were waiting, a development group seeking financing for a major office complex. The kind of project that required thorough analysis, careful documentation, and absolute professional integrity. Exactly the kind of work I'd always done well, and would continue doing well, in whatever challenges the future might bring.